Borderlands 4 is finally here, a game that was written in the stars of failure. Before this game even came out, there was a whole lot of controversies in regards to Borderlands 4, most of which was greatly escalated by Randy Pitchford, because that's just what Randy Pitchford does. If you had expressed your opinion in regards to Borderlands 4 in any way or form, and Randy Pitchford deemed your opinion to be even slightly negative, even slightly, he was there in full force, going absolutely mad. And it is fair to say that a lot of people weren't exactly happy with Randy Pitchford, and therefore they had decided that they were going to boycott Borderlands 4. A lot of people were going to boycott Borderlands 4, thereby cementing its name in the stars of failure. So after all the controversy, after all the promises of boycotting Borderlands 4, did Borderlands 4 actually fail? No, it did pretty well. And more impressive above all of these things is the fact that Borderlands 4 is actually pretty good. I'm not sure how exactly they did this, but now I am starting to believe more and more that Randy Pitchford is actually a magician. So what exactly makes Borderlands 4 good? Well, let's start at a point, and I would like to start at probably the newest addition to the Borderlands franchise, which is the open world. There are three main areas in Borderlands 4 and a final area that you will unlock once you complete the story related missions in the three main areas, which has definitely never been done before and is definitely an open world layout that has not been copied by a game that rhymes with Schmef of the Schmild. The thing is that I think that Borderlands 4 actually did this pretty well. I have seen many other games that copied the Breath of the Wild open world layout, and I think some of them did a way worse job than Borderlands 4. So, good job, Gearbox Softies. But of course, the open world has to be filled with a bunch of shit, and that shit comes in the form of points of interest. So how good are the points of interest in Borderlands 4? They are pretty decent. They are definitely not the best, but also not the worst. There are quite a few points of interest in Borderlands 4, and there are also a whole lot of collectibles and just random things you can come across. And yes, some of the points of interest feel very Ubisoft-like. In other words, they feel very basic and repetitive, making them pretty boring. But some of the points of interest are actually decent and feel like their own mini levels. That is pretty cool, and I like it. I also like the fact that discovering points of interest and even finding collectibles all gives you rewards, and these rewards comes in the form of the currency that you use to upgrade your SDUs, which is a neat touch. Pretty cool, very awesome. Now, the missions in Borderlands 4 are basically what you would expect the missions to be in a Borderlands game, except now you don't have to sit through multiple loading screens just to complete them. Now, there are also new types of quests in Borderlands 4, and these come in the form of contracts, and I absolutely hate them. You see, you can only accept 5 of them at a time for some reason, and these quests are extremely basic. They are very basic fetch quests and quests in which you kill an enemy. Not a boss fight, not a super cool enemy, just an enemy. That's it. And the rewards for doing this is absolutely shite. And because the rewards are so shite, it makes doing these mundane quests absolutely not worth it and a complete waste of time. But overall, the main missions and side missions are pretty much what you would expect from a Borderlands game, and they are pretty decent. I think that the open world of Borderlands 4 is pretty competent. It is well made, but there are some other issues in regards to the open world that is more related to the gameplay. The main complaint I have in regards to Borderlands 4's gameplay is its enemy variety, which definitely impacts exploring the open world. Enemy variety is important, and the enemy variety in Borderlands 4 is shit. It is terrible. You will constantly be fighting the same enemies over and over again, and I feel like that is a massive missed opportunity. Each region in Borderlands 4 has different different creature enemies, but the main enemies you'll be fighting are the Rippers and the Order Forces, and these enemies stay consistent throughout the game. Now, as you level up, tougher forces will spawn with all the enemy types, but again, it's just a few new enemies, which is not good enough, especially not for an open world game. It is a bit disappointing that a much more linear game like Borderlands 2 has greater enemy variety than the newest game in the franchise, and I do think it has a negative impact on exploring the fancy new open world. However, the rest of the game's gameplay has seen some significant upgrades and some improvements, which is very cool. The gunplay does feel basically the same like Borderlands 3, except now there's been significant improvements to the movement. Now you can dash and float through the air like an elegant butterfly, and you can use a grappling hook only in specific areas. Just let us use the grappling hook. Halo Infinite did it, and that was pretty cool, but I still think that the way you use the grappling hook in this game is pretty cool, and it is a cool new feature to Borderlands 4. Now, when it comes to the boss fights in Borderlands 4, I would say that they are pretty good. For the most part, there are still a few stinkers you can come across, especially those that you encounter in the open world, but the story boss fights for the most part are pretty good and an overall improvement from those in Borderlands 3. Now, the final thing I want to talk about in relation to the gameplay is the quality of life improvements, in which there are many. My favorites are the fact that you can now upgrade your SDUs directly from your menu, and you can now spawn your vehicle basically anywhere at any time, which is pretty cool. And my favorite is the fact that farming boss fights is now easier than ever, thanks to a new mechanic that is introduced in Borderlands 4. Now, I am not sure why it took them 4 games and 2 spin-offs, not including the Tales from the Borderlands games, to finally figure out a mechanic to make farming easier, especially given the fact that farming is such an important part of these games, but I am glad that they got there in the end. The gameplay was one of my biggest concerns in relation to Borderlands 4, and I can say that even though it looked like there wasn't that many improvements, overall the gameplay has seen quite a lot of improvements, and it is overall pretty darn good. And that now only leaves me with the story of Borderlands 4. Is the story of Borderlands 4 an improvement from that of Borderlands 3? With Borderlands 3's story being so utterly shite and unbearable at times, has this game improved upon the story? And I can say with confidence that Borderlands 4's story is perfect, but not for the reasons you are thinking. The reason why Borderlands 4's story is perfect is because it is completely forgettable. The story in this game isn't really good or memorable in any way or form. Most of the characters are utterly boring. The story at times makes no sense. There is a heavy hint of plot armor every now and then, and plenty of ex machinas, and I can go on and on about the story, but I can't really go into any of it without spoiling the story. But what I can say about Borderlands 4's story is that it is pretty mid. It is very forgettable, and I think that is fine, because I think these games are more focused on the gameplay. The gameplay and the level design, and in this case the open world, is much more important than the story. And if I have to pick between whatever the fuck Borderlands 3 story was and a completely forgettable and boring story, I am picking the boring story, because me cringing every time somebody speaks is utterly annoying, and I think that Borderlands 3 story overall was a negative to Borderlands 3 as a whole, whereas the story is just kind of there and forgettable. Now, I do not want to spoil anything in regards to the story, but I do have to mention that a fan favorite character of Borderlands 3 didn't return in the story, and that character is Ava.
No. Wait.
I'm gonna be a siren, and then I'm gonna mop the floor with assholes like you.
You need to shut the fuck up.
which I think her not returning to the story of Borderlands 4 is an overall positive to the game as a whole, because that character was fucking terrible. But there also are some other legitimate positives to the story. For example, they actually got the cutscenes right. Now you either get to see your Vault Hunter in the cutscenes, or you get to experience the cutscene in first person. This is a significant improvement to that of Borderlands 3, in which apparently all the cutscenes were directly from the first person view of the Vault Hunter you are playing, which immediately starts to make no sense once you start floating around in the cutscenes and start teleporting everywhere. It made no sense. So overall, the Borderlands 4 story is completely forgettable, even though there are a few positives to it, and I think that is totally fine. So where exactly does that leave me with Borderlands 4? I would say that I am pretty surprised in regards to this game. I didn't expect anything from this game, and for it to actually be good was a pleasant surprise, because I can't lie and say that I didn't enjoy my time with this game. And yes, this game isn't perfect, and it absolutely isn't going to win Game of the Year or even be a contender for Game of the Year, and there are quite a few negatives in regards to this game, especially when it comes to its performance issues, which is slowly but surely being resolved, which is good. The game overall is a fun time and a game I would recommend once the performance issues are settled, and especially if you are a fan of the Borderlands franchise. In summary, Borderlands 4 is a pleasant surprise. No, it isn't winning any Game of the Year awards, and Randy Pitchford needs to learn that there is a delete button for Twitter. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.